Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, we have a show today, which, you and I both said, wow, this is a hard show and a sadness. And partly, I think, because my son, Scott, and your brother were around the same age as this young man, Carson, who died. And so we know what pain this family has gone through. So you want to introduce the family to us, Heidi, and husband and wife?
Sure, I'd love to. We're talking today with Scott and Julia Starkey. On December 2nd, 2008, following a fraternity hazing ritual, Julia and Scott Starkey's son Carson died of acute alcohol poisoning. Following his death, the Starkey family formed Aware, Awake, Alive, a nonprofit that prevents loss of life to alcohol poisoning by educating teens, young adults, and parents on its symptoms and empowering them with the necessary tools and resources. Welcome to the show, Scott and Julia.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. We are a long-time Austin, Texas family, and Carson grew up, of course, in Austin, and he really wanted to go away to college. He had wanted to make a new set of friends and break away from his high school groups, and he was interested in architectural engineering, and Cal Poly has a stellar reputation for that, and so he chose to attend Cal Poly, and he had no intentions of joining a fraternity because that's kind of what all his high school buddies were doing, and it wasn't very interesting to him. And not too long after being out in California, he decided he was in kind of need of a friend base and decided to go through Rush in hopes of making some friends. And he called us several times and talked through it with us, and we supported his decision. And he would call periodically during different visits to different fraternities and talk about them and counsel us on which one he should choose and all that. And so he joined Sigma Alpha Epsilon at Cal Poly. And after his Thanksgiving break, visiting Austin, our traditional Thanksgiving, we put him on a plane and he flew back to school, and we heard that he got back to his dorm safe. And basically the next thing we heard was we received at home a missed call on our caller ID from the San Luis Obispo County Coroner's Office. And so, of course, we immediately called back and got one on the phone, and we were told that Carson had been going through part of this initiation process with this fraternity, and part of that process was he was compelled to drink very large amount of alcohol in a very short period of time, and he was put to bed. I think everyone thought he'd, wake up the next morning. He didn't.
Oh, my gosh.
That is so disturbing.
So disturbing. And what a way to hear about it on the telephone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've talked about that. And, I mean, it's kind of weird getting the caller ID missed call and then calling back and having to track down the coroner and all that. But, in hindsight, there's really no good way to get that message, and so that's really not that big a deal to us how we heard. I mean, it's
true, Scott. And, I was in a sorority years and years ago, and I was also far away from home, 3,000 miles away from home. I grew up in New York. I was at the University of Utah, and I did the same thing. I joined the sorority to meet people, and it was a positive experience, and I can totally see why you supported this. And I think it just brings home the fact that these young college students need to be educated about the dangers of alcohol consumption. And I'm so glad that you guys are building awareness for this issue, because it's happening as we speak all over the country in various places.
Yes, we've learned through help from different surveys and different research that every 44 hours a college student in the United States will die of alcohol poisoning. And if you think about that's pretty incredible, and it's a very scary fact, and that motivates us every day because to try to prevent another family from going through the tragedy and loss that we have.
Now, talk about your organization.
To kind of backstory it, we went through a lengthy civil and criminal legal process regarding Carson's death, and we were fortunate. We were still living in Austin at the time. We were fortunate we were able to attend every deposition, and we learned a lot. We spent the time, educating ourselves on this issue, and really what happened with Carson was fairly simple. His peers didn't recognize the severity of his problem. They didn't recognize the signs of alcohol poisoning. And like so many young people, they just thought he'd sleep it off, passed out, sleep it off. And then secondly, they were all afraid to take him to the hospital or call for help because they were afraid of getting in trouble with their fraternity or getting in trouble with the school. A lot of them were also minors, drinking. And so we built our organization based around those two simple facts. So we educate, through colleges, and now we're even doing high school programs to help these students recognize these signs and then have the confidence to take the steps to seek help and realize that they're not going to get in trouble. There's a lot of legislation being passed around the country that gives amnesty to young people under the age of 21 who help someone in trouble by making the call. And you mentioned Cal Poly. It all started here at Cal Poly. We've actually moved here to San Luis Obispo, where Cal Poly is, and we still conduct a lot of business in Texas. We have staff there, and we're kind of running the West Coast part of the business. And we're just delighted to be able to share our story and our message with the goal of saving lives. It's very important to us.
That's fantastic. Julia, can you give us like 3 of the signs of alcohol poisoning?
Well, obviously the first one in Carson's case was he was unresponsive. After 20 minutes of drinking, he was completely unresponsive. Passed out is not always a good thing. People think, a lot of the kids will think, oh, he's passed out, he'll wake up. That's definitely not a good thing. In Carson's case, he was so far gone, he didn't even throw up. So, a lot of people think, oh, if you're throwing up, you're okay. Or if you're not throwing up, you're okay. So, I think throwing up and not being able to stop that is definitely a sign. And we have an acronym that we came up with that's on our website. It's called Must Help. And each one of those letters stand for one of the signs. So we have printed cards, and we have wristbands, and we have all different kinds of posters and things to help the students recognize the signs and know that not all the signs have to be there to have alcohol poisoning. As in Carson's case, not all the signs were there, but there were plenty. We worked with Cal Poly, and they actually helped pilot our program on their campus and helped us to develop what we call our tools and our toolbox. And we took those tools and developed a website, and we're able to give our programming it's a free downloadable information. And the way that we love to see it presented is it's peer-to-peer. And so the students are working with the students. It's impossible for Scott and I to, travel the nation and speak to students one-on-one. And so we tried to send our message out through our website. Our website is our largest tool.
Are the interfraternity councils interested in this?
Yes, we've actually had some really good discussions with some national fraternities and sororities, and we're working toward that. We feel like that's a big goal for us, is to be able to work with them, because that is one of our number one issues.
I love the peer-to-peer part of it, because I feel like, college kids and teenagers are going to listen to their peers versus an adult kind of talking at them, and they'll feel like they're being lectured, but coming from their peers, it's going to be very powerful. And I'm thinking how powerful it would be just to, and you probably do this, go into fraternities and sororities, and even just by educating them once could save lives in that house.
Yeah, and we've seen in a lot of different housing and on campuses, they'll put the posters up, all throughout the dorms and the restrooms and the meetings, the community rooms. And one of the things I think that has really helped us is that our message is non-judgmental. We realize that kids they're going to drink, they're going to experiment. Many of the kids that die of alcohol poisoning are inexperienced drinkers. Their friends are inexperienced drinkers, and they don't know that this is bad and it's deadly. And so we know that that's the case. We're not preaching abstinence. Of course, we're not preaching to drink under the age of 21 either, but we're realistic that it happens. And so we want to make sure that the kids have the tools to understand what's bad and when they need to get help.
How long did it take you You went through a court. How was that going through it, and did anybody get, prosecuted for anything, and how did that go? And did you feel better after the decision?
You know, from the very get-go, we weren't really mad at them or felt like we were angry at them. We were mad and upset at the situation, that this situation exists and that this happened. But to directly answer your question, yes, there were 4 students prosecuted under a hazing charge here in California. And on the civil side, the fraternity was held liable, and they had a settlement. We agreed to a settlement with them, a lot of which involves monumental, meaningful change on their part. They have really come around and are trying to address the situation since this happened.
What happened to the 4 boys?
They did some
Community service.
In-house arrest time here in St. Louis.
But I think the bigger picture is there's actually a video on on our website of the Pledge Educator, and you look at, so they had community service time, and they also had some jail time, which turned out to be in-house jail time. But he had difficulty getting a job. He had difficulty finishing college. He had quite a financial burden hiring the lawyers. It was a life-changing event for him. And I remember seeing and he did the interview with us. He drove hours to get to us to do this interview, and it was life-changing for me to hear his side of the story. Not that, like Scott said, not that we were angry or upset with him in a personal way, but to understand how this affected him as well.
Right. He showed remorse. This one individual did show remorse.
The other ones didn't, when you're saying just one?
I would say there was only one that did not show remorse. But this one in particular we're talking about that did a really incredible interview with us, it was very heartfelt.
One of the problems I know is that the legal system sometimes tells people who are involved in death situations that their lawyers will tell them never speak to the family. And it's very difficult,
Right.
because some of the, I had a friend whose husband was hit by a kid and killed, and the kid came to her house, the wife's house, one day and said, "My lawyers have told me I can never speak to you, but I cannot not tell you how sorry I am."
Yeah.
I kind of want to throw in that all the things we've learned about alcohol poisoning since Carson's passing. Yes, the fraternity, the Greek system is a major component of that, but it's not confined to that in any. I mean, we're very active with working with sports teams,
High schools.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just a fraternity thing.
We reach out to all the families to be supportive to them just in their grief, but also to be supportive to them if they need help. There's been multiple families who use our acronym, use the Must Help, who use our videos and presentations to their local high schools or colleges, and we encourage the families to work with us, and we're just there to support them in any way they can. I'll be actually talking to a sister of a young man that died recently this afternoon. I talked to a lot of the moms. I talked to a lot of the families, and that's just a way that I can help personally. But then as far as our organization, we're definitely there to support and help in any way we can.
Thank you so much for being on the show. And people would find you if they went to www.awakeandalive. Is that what I would look for?
awakealive.org. I'm on the site right now. It's fabulous.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on, and thanks for everything you're doing to raise awareness in Carson's name. And I have to say one thing about you both. I think one of the keys to me is your forgiveness, because I think without forgiveness in these kinds of situations, it's very hard to move forward. And you've certainly done that, and I want to congratulate you both. Thanks for listening to our show today, and Heidi and I want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours till you find your own, and God bless.